Hi there, this is Solitaire Ronan from Solitaire Ronan Films, and welcome to our random review. Today's random review comes from 1968, and it's No Way to Treat a Lady, with Rod Steiger, Lee Remick, and George Seagal. Again, this is another imprint release. This is spy number 7, for those counting at home, and this one comes with a commentary by Kat Ellinger and alternate artwork and an image in the inner sleeve. This is a film directed by Jack Smite, who is another one of those workmanlike directors from the 60s and 70s. Did lots of TV, did the Paul Newman film Harper, he did the TV movie remake of Double Indemnity, talk about a poison chalice. He did Midway, he did Airport 75, he also did The Illustrated Man with Rod Steiger as well. He did a version of Frankenstein with Jane Seymour in the 70s. And this is a wonderful little serial killer film with Rod Steiger in the role of the killer. That's not spoilers. It's shown fairly quickly in the first couple of minutes of the film. We meet Rod Steiger, who's a ginger-haired Irish priest, working his way into a middle-aged woman's home, and starts to tickle her and then ends up strangling her to death, and then with lipstick drawing a pair of lips on her forehead. George Seagal is the cop who gets involved with the case and gets personally involved because Rod Steiger keeps phoning him up and telling him that he's killed. At one point he does say he will stop being a bad boy. Lee Remick starts off as being a witness and then has a nice kind of slightly kind of abnormal romantic subplot, which is a lot more fun than the usual we need a woman to do the romantic subplot. It's far more interesting and more fun as she gets to know George Seagal's stereotypical Jewish mother. The title of the film comes from George Seagal's mother, not approving of him kind of looking at female corpses and prodding around in female corpses. As she says, that's no way to treat a lady. But obviously he's doing it for his job, whereas Rod Steiger is killing women for various reasons. That won't be too much of a surprise as the film unfolds. This is just another opportunity for Rod Steiger to chew scenery like you wouldn't believe, even though in the end his performance at the end is actually still quite moving, despite all the tomfoolery that he has graced us with during the runtime of the film. It was based on a William Goldman book. As you can see in the back, now that just screams subtle and delicate and moving performance by Rod Steiger. He plays a theatre owner, so it does kind of call back a little bit to Theatre of Blood, just in the sense that he has different uniforms, different disguises to get into these middle-aged women's houses. He uses different accents to various degree. is an Irish priest. He is a German plumber. He does W.C. Fields impersonations at one point. He gets into drag. It's the kind of role that actors would literally stab each other in the back to do. It gives them a chance just to have a play, and no doubt Jack Smite was just like, no, we need it closer to 11, Rod. And it's like, no bother. So I mean, if you're not a fan of Steiger being Steiger, then you're probably not going to enjoy this film. But if you just love seeing Rod Steiger, just go for it. There's a lot to like. It was shot on location in New York, so New York 1968. It makes really good use of locations. Seagal has that kind of sardonic persona that he kind of had throughout his whole career. The relationship between him and Steiger over the phone, how he manages to kind of prise information out of Steiger is very well done. At one point, he just happens to say to another detective that Steiger's a sexual pervert, and then that gets in the papers, and Steiger's annoyed about that, demanding a retraction. At one point, Seagal's taken off the case, and then Steiger kills again and leaves a message saying, reinstate George Seagal, because he has a rapport with him. And like I say, the relationship between Seagal and Lee Remick is actually well done and interesting, unlike quite a lot of these romantic subplots and thrillers. And then obviously, predictably, Lee Remick is involved, as she was at the start. She's involved at the end as well. But again, it's a kind of natural development of the story. I would say obviously it's 1968, so there is kind of derogatory language. At one point, Steiger plays a homosexual wig fitter, and he, like I say, he's in drag at one point, and he's with, he meets another trans woman, so obviously there's some derogatory language that you can get away with nowadays. There's also a small person who comes in to confess to the crimes, and obviously that's played for laughs, with George Seagal saying, the description was somebody who was taller and he's uncomfortable, obviously not. But then that does provide Seagal with an idea when the frustrated person who wants to confess does something in the squad room, and then that sparks George Seagal to come up with an idea that might help catch Seagal. But again, like with a lot of films, short people were used as laughs, to get laughs basically. So there is that in the film as well. But again, that is just a product of the times, really. Looking back on it, we can judge it differently than when it came out. The killings by Steiger, we don't see all of them, but they are kind of really creepy and unsettling. The first one, he originally starts tickling the woman. The second one, he claims to have grown up in the same place that the German woman's from, Frankfurt. So they look through old photos of Frankfurt, and he says, "Oh, I can see my friend," and he's saying, "Auf Wiedersehen." So there are times where Steiger is actually really scary, and he actually does it very well. There's a couple of lines that he does, and interpretations of lines that are really chilling and really well done. And then obviously he gets a scene where he can just chew scenery like you wouldn't believe. But that's all part and parcel of Steiger, really. But like I say, bizarrely, the end, which of course Steiger doesn't go quietly at the end, he still manages to pull off a really moving ending, and not that you feel sympathy for him, but you don't actually see him as a complete monster, and that's actually pretty hard to do. And Steiger, I think, actually pulls it off, despite his histrionics. So all in all, again, it's a really interesting film that I wasn't familiar with. Again, it's another little forgotten film that Imprint has released on a wonderful Blu-ray, and it's well worth checking out as long as you're not allergic to Rod Steiger being a little bit too much Rod Steiger. So thanks very much for watching this random review of No Way to Treat a Lady, and hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews in the future. Please let me know if you've seen No Way to Treat a Lady and what you think of it, and I will see you again in the future. This is Solitude Ronin from Solitude Ronin Films, saying cheerio.